Okay, Tim, thanks so much for coming on the show. Excited to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be invited. Thank you.
Yeah, so I've seen from what I've researched on you, you're a British filmmaker living in Dubai. You know, I go to your Instagram and I can see you're an ambassador for brands like Sony, Miller, Zacuto. You know, you're a partner in a production company that's turning over 7 figures. You know, you've worked for brands like Red Bull, Netflix, and saw you bumping shoulders with Will Smith. And you're also a coach for filmmakers on the business side of things. Is that right?
Yeah, summarized it perfectly. Thank you so much. That's pretty much. It sounds like a lot, but I do a very good job of juggling it all.
Yeah, I mean, speaking of a lot, that's a quite a full life to be taking on. But like going back to the very beginning, like where did that even, before any of those titles existed, before any of that like big stack we just described, where was the foundational pieces of the arc of Timothy? Where did that begin?
Well, I didn't study filmmaking. My journey, you could say, started when I just used to document a hobby or a sport that I used to play when I was a kid. Around 14 or 15, I used to do this thing called kiteboarding, which in the UK is not as sexy as it sounds. It's not like, it's a little bit like kite surfing, but you do it usually in fields or on land. So usually when you muck up and hit the ground, it's usually a lot more painful. But it was a great, it was a great sport. And I basically just learned through making videos and on Movie Maker with a little like Fujifilm Fine Pix thing. So that's sort of where I learned sort of to shoot and edit films in a very novice manner. When I got professional with it, it was only until later after I went to college to study, funnily enough, motorsport engineering. But I quickly left the industry after 2-3 years of realizing it's not what I wanted to do. And then the race circuit where I studied, because of my kiting days, they remembered that I used to cut content. They were like, would you like to come do a media job with us at the circuit? And I basically was hired, and I had their sort of like, you know, their company wallet to just go hire any gear that I could. And I just learned through all the, like the Sony X1 era. I learned like a shot on the 5Ds. I just basically learned just to produce content through that for 2-3 years. And then I went solo. I met someone through the kiting industry again, power of networking. My business partner in the UK, his name's Peter Farrer. He's an ex-BBC engineer. And only when he got involved did my sort of learning really sort of compound, because I had a proper mentor in that respect. And we did motorsport coverage for 2-3 years. And I ended up meeting my second business partner. So there's 3 of us now. Rajiv Virani, who's an ex-Bollywood director from India, serving a mutual client in the motorsport trade. And we ended up in Dubai in 2013, and I was 23 at the time. So I basically did that. And fast forward on nearly 13 years now, being in Dubai, I've grown the production house to a team of 15 and worked with some of the names you mentioned. And it's a great privilege. A lot of learnings along the way. Didn't do a lot of things well and right in the beginning, but I don't think any of us do, right? That's the point of it. But no, it's been a great journey, but that's where it all started pretty much.
Yeah, what an arc. I'm very curious, like of all places, Dubai, like why Dubai? It sounds like, from me as a Canadian filmmaker over here, that just sounds like so over there.
I know. I mean, at the time, Dubai's had a lot of publicity over the last like 10 years, but when I had to Google what Dubai was when I was sort of presented it, I didn't know what Dubai was.
Yeah.
So I kind of got in really early, because people do talk about it as an opportunity, you know, a really good place to go and grow a business, which it is. I can definitely, confirm that. But at the time, I was doing I niched too early. That was the problem with me. I was into motorsport. I didn't like working in the motorsport industry. And then I worked at a race circuit and then went into media covering motorsport. So I stayed in my ecosystem that was comfortable. So that's why I accidentally niched. And it was good, but I was battling with people that would turn up to circuits and, you know, events when wanting to shoot for free on their iPad. So for me, I found it very hard to navigate the challenge around budgets. And it got to the point where, like, I think when I bumped into Rajiv, my other business partner, who we ended up serving this one client in particular that did pay quite well and gave us a lot of amazing opportunities. We had to follow this racing car driver around Europe, around India, and he did a lot of these excursions with his friends, and we basically were the crew very along the way. So as a 21, 22-year-old, I felt like I was in my peak, being flown around the world, filming supercars and stuff. I was loving it. But
Yeah.
you got to pay the bills, right? And a lot of this work, although it was attractive, it didn't hit the mark. So Rajiv was like, look, I've got a production business in India and Dubai, in the US. It's called First and 10. I've got the logo here. So First and 10 is the
Nice.
production house that Rajiv created back in '99, and it was only in India and in the US. He's an ex-Bollywood Hollywood director, and he was like, look, I've always wanted to go to Dubai, so would you guys like to join forces? Because we had already been working for a few years together at that point, and I was just like, you know, hell yeah, let's do this. We're sort of hitting a ceiling in the UK. Why not? So I was steered very heavily by Rajiv and Pete. So I can't say it was a strategic decision. It was an accidental decision, definitely. You know, and I think that's probably how a lot of us in the early years of our careers sort of end up where we are. It's through the accidental choices we make. But we're still here because I'd like to say that we're good at what we do. So otherwise we would have been back in the UK. So yeah.
Yeah. I mean, hard to say that that's an accident. Ultimately, I think when we set our energy in the right direction in life, like ultimately we attract the people that we're meant to connect with. And like it's so interesting even just to hit on that right away. Is just like the evolution of our careers are mainly based on the relationships we build. And that just seems like synchronicity working for you in that regard, you know?
100%. Definitely. Yeah. So true.
Yeah. So, I mean, in the beginning, you probably experienced it too, but oftentimes we get really obsessed with the gear and we're constantly, I mean, you have to in the beginning, you have to get really deep in the weeds when it comes to learning the tech. But I find that when I watch the evolution of a filmmaker's journey, oftentimes the obsession of being a filmmaker, which is why we all start for the artistic endeavor and the storytelling and like loving to play with gear, whatever you're nerd out on more, depends on where you land. But ultimately, if you don't understand the business side of what we're actually doing or how it actually works, how to build relationships, how to write a contract, how to pitch, like all these sorts of things, like you basically have a hobby. You don't have a career. So I'm curious to hear like what, for when you look back, like what is the thing that filmmakers most need to understand when it comes to, okay, now I've got my kind of story and my tech all set up. I've done my reps for a handful of years. Like what is the next step into like actually moving into the business side and making a success?
It's a great question, but I think it boils down to the product. I mean, as you've rightly pointed out, you can't really excel until you get the basics in place. You've got to learn how to shoot, edit. You know, you've got to learn to do our trade, right? But there is a minutiae and mountains around us that we need to climb in the business sense. And as you rightly say, I love the fact you called it a hobby, because I say that all the time. If you're not, if you're tied to the business and you're trading your time for money, you've got a hobby that pays you rather than a business. And I think that's completely true. And there's nothing wrong with that, by the way. I don't recommend entrepreneurism for everyone. It's a very sucky, painful process. And I'll be honest, for you to do well at it, you have to learn to let go sometimes of the creative. But going back to your question about what it is that you'd need to learn, we're in not a scary time. We're in a very interesting, evolving time right now with our trade. I mean, people are worrying about if we're going to be replaced with AI, et cetera, and all that stuff. And I don't necessarily agree with all that. I do feel like if you don't learn to adopt it and use it, you will be replaced. It's like the graphic designers back in the day when InDesign came along, et cetera. If you didn't grow with it, you were left behind. But you still, I think, need to focus on products. You can learn sales, but if you just keep selling the way you currently sell, all you're going to end up doing is exhausting the hours you have in your week. So when I speak to filmmakers all the time about where you trapped, what's the reason, what are you stuck with, and usually they say clients. Getting more clients usually actually isn't the root cause of the issue. The root cause of the issue is they want to not have to go chase clients. They should focus on better retention. Because sales is three things. There's acquisition, getting new prospects, conversion, improving how you close, and then retention. And all filmmakers survive very, very well on retention, because if you do a good job, people will come back to you and you will get word of mouth referrals. And this is the majority of how the industry survives. So good filmmakers, like I've got friends that are 18, 19 years in the industry, older than me, doing really well, but they don't do any proactive sales. They just have so many people coming back to them. But it's a dangerous space to stay in. Yes. So we need to evolve our product offering. It's Hormozy would call it your offer. Daniel Priestley, other mentors that are out there that are entrepreneurial, talk about it as your product ecosystem. I call it we need to productize. So it's all the same wording, but we just have to learn to be more valuable. And what I mean by this usually is centered around just not doing content. Every asset has what I call a 4P journey. There's a planning phase, producing phase, publishing phase, and promoting phase. Whether you are in control of it or not, if you're doing a short film, a commercial, or social media advert, there is a planning phase to how that asset actually plans to move the needle on the business that is paying for everything. I'm not talking about pre-production in terms of planning. That's in P. Then there's produce, which is what all filmmakers do. Then there's publishing, where the content goes to the right channel. And in some cases, a good piece of content doesn't go to social media. It can go to a sales team where they use it in an offline conversation with a prospect, or it can be used on a website, or it could be a billboard. Like, a content is a very malleable asset. It's a digital asset that effectively can be used in many channels. So paying attention to where it's published is important, and then how it gets promoted. And whether you like it or not, this journey happens. And if we don't understand as filmmakers to develop our offering to, if not offer, at least consult on the 4, we will get left behind. So if you had to take one bit of advice already today, and if you tune out the podcast now, thanks for watching so far, and you leave and you want to take one bit away, is just try to learn to be more valuable and bring more to the table with your service. So don't just look at content as the be all and end all. My job stops once I hand over the files. You should take initiative to follow up with the client and see how the exposure went, and see if it actually hit the KPIs the client had intended for the asset. Like, you would be surprised how well that would do for your business in terms of getting better retention, retainers, booked. You could charge more. It's more scalable. I mean, I could talk forever about how beneficial offering of what I call a 4P service is. It's fundamental, if anything.
Okay, well, let's dive into that a little bit more. Let's go back to P number 1. Like, can you run me through a little bit more detail on each layer of the cake here?
Okay, so 4 Ps. You have a planning phase. So planning, like, there's this great book which I can recommend by Anthony W. Ulewick. It's called Jobs to be Done. And if I may just divert and just go on a tangent for a little bit, just to give it like a story that we can all relate to. I think in this book it talks about how this like father, for example, wants to get his daughter's painting hung up on the wall to sort of motivate her for like a potential art exam or something. I can't remember the exact story, but the job to be done is to make his daughter feel like he's proud of her. Okay, now he has to drill a hole in that wall. So he has to either go out and hire a handyman or go out and get a drill bit. And there are a million ways that he can go to different vendors and buy different products to achieve this hole. But the job to be done is something very simple. It's the motivating factor of the whole point of the actual exercise. And I think with content, we have to remember that also does exist with us. So if a client is coming to you and saying, we have an event film, most filmmakers would be like, cool, what are we shooting at the event? How many cameras do you need? What assets do you need? How quick do you need the content? Do you need photography? Is there a media wall? Do you need live coverage? Do you need highlights? Blah, 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 blah. And you won't actually go, great, that's amazing. So is it a branding exercise that you're doing? And they'll be like, because most event films are a branding exercise, to be honest. But most event films have a shelf life. And it's like, well, what are you doing else that's with branding? And if you ask the right questions, you start peeling back layers to why the client's doing this investment in the first place. So when you get to the crux of it, you can almost, what I call, find the bruise in the sales conversation, and not necessarily convince them to spend more, but you can serve them better. And in some cases, this may end up qualifying you out of the conversation. If you do proper planning and serving a prospect well, you ironically sometimes can end up being in a room where you think this client shouldn't do a video with you. And it means that you're sort of talking yourself out of the work. But to be honest, that's the way we should serve. I don't believe that we should try to maximize the profit that we can from a job. It's how do we serve and offer value in the best way possible, even if it means that we're not the person doing it. So that's planning, all right? Because it sort of dictates the plan. And then just to layer on planning before we move on, it also then dictates how the other 3 Ps sort of flow. So you sort of find the objective, the purpose, the plan of everything, and the rest of the 3 Ps follow into place. Producing is the pre-production, production, post-production journey, which I don't think I need to explain. It's very obvious if you're a filmmaker watching this what that is. But it corresponds off the plan. You know, in most cases, filmmakers tend to do quite well when agencies hire them. I call those B2A clients, not B2B. So a 4P service works for a B2B. When you're working with a B2A, you can only do a 1P, to be honest. You're not going to want to go to the agency and go, so what's the strategy behind this commercial?
That's their job.
They're like, leave me alone, mate. Just do the creative piece. So they're just going to do that, exactly. And And then you've got publishing, which, like I say, could be many channels. It's not just social media. Content can be used to help with acquisition, conversion, and retention. And there are layers of channels in between each one of those. So that's publishing. And then promoting is when you could call it performance marketing. It's when you have ad spend or you're promoting the content properly. That could be SEO even. It could be, you know, a radio advert. It could be a meta ad. It could be a YouTube ad. So yeah, those are the 4 Ps.
Well, how much are you getting involved in the promotion side of things? Because I think like ultimately filmmakers, like naturally, inherently, they're artists. They're not like, I want to look up the algorithm statistics of pushing your ad at this much dollar. Like it's beyond them. Like how involved are you getting on that side of things?
We consult almost on the 4 Ps with every B2B transaction we do, because we like to just offer advice and a roadmap to clients to make them feel like they're looked after, even if we're not sort of doing it. But in some cases, we will handle it. So we have products in what we call our ecosystem where we could say it's a 4P service or a 3P service or whatever. And the ones that are 4P, I would have to sense check, first of all, that it makes sense that we do paid advertising. So like if we're working with a gym, for example, and they're like, we want to get more leads. I'm like, cool, just check your following out. And if their following is average and you know, they have a good database of like people they could, like members they currently have, etc., content can only go so far. So you've got to sort of lean on paid advertising to get that asset in front of the right person. So basically, we would obviously vet the KPI, the brief, find out what the actual need of the investment is, and paid advertising may be applicable or not. We get involved to the level of, sometimes handling the advert, posting it, etc., etc. In something that's very complicated, we might partner with an agency that we work with that's very, very good. So we have agencies that we work with all the time. We still serve B2As. It's still a big part of our revenue. If I'm working with a client that has a very large ad spend budget, we're talking tens of thousands of dollars a month, I would be inclined to partner with an agency to bring them to the table to help keep it 4P and in my ecosystem, but I would just be delegating it to someone that's a bit more experienced than I am. But when you're dealing with a few $1,000s or a small business or a pretty simple, business that or a brand, we handle the 4P. And again, it's not complicated. People think advertising is this mythical, magical thing you need to go to university and study 5 years for. There's like 3 main parts to advertising. There's the content itself, which as filmmakers, we know what to do. Providing you know how to script write, grab attention and stimulate a call to action. That's important. And that's in our wheelhouse. The Facebook adding and audience creating and split testings, neither here or there. It's just data analyzing, and you can get a load of people to help you with that. What happens after the lead says, I'm interested, is actually really, really important. That's what we call the customer journey, or the LAPS journey, LAPS, lead appointment, presentation, sell journey. This is credit to Daniel Priestley's methodology. And again, I encourage everyone watching to go study Daniel Priestley. He's an incredible business coach. That is where the magic happens, because the lead goes either to an appointment phase, to a presentation phase, to a sell phase. It doesn't matter whether it's an e-commerce, fast-moving good, or whether it's a complicated service like a consultancy service. That is actually where the important information and the journey happens. And when you measure the sale, that's the client acquisition cost. Lead price doesn't mean anything. Like even with my course, when I turn up my advert, I get leads on my calendar. It's not about the lead price, it's about the client acquisition cost. So you have to just understand and learn that. And the customer journey is actually more of a business consultancy space. Agencies and usually filmmakers don't dabble with that. And if you just learn it a little bit, you stand out automatically compared to the rest of us. And that's just, it's worth understanding and knowing. Learn the 4 Ps. I keep going back to that. It's a really useful tool.
Yeah. I mean, when I hear all that, honestly, I feel like most filmmakers would be overwhelmed by the idea of like looking into the Facebook ad spend, conversion rate, tell my client this. Like it gets a little dicey in there for someone who is definitely more right brain. But there was a piece there earlier you spoke to, maybe in the second P, but like the B2A or B2B.
Yeah,
I think most filmmakers, like you said, it aligns to work with agencies for this reason, because agencies are handling all of the other stuff, let's say, than the creative part that we naturally are good at. I'm trying to think of like what I can just feel most people land in that camp, who are filmmakers and shy away from learning all these other steps. But I can say for myself on my own journey that the danger of doing that, of only working for agencies, means that when the economy slows down or something when the commercials stopped flowing, which happened last summer, like there was things with the border and Trump and all these sorts of things, the economy really slowed down commercially in Vancouver. And I felt the squeeze really hard. And what that forced me to do was be like, okay, I can't now rely on inbound leads or all this word of mouth. All these directors, producers who are normally calling me are not, because they're also not getting the jobs. So my switch was, how do I now go find the work, create the work, pitch the work, which is now what you're speaking to. You have to now know the 4 Ps and switch from being just like a filmmaker who works for the agencies to like, I can go help and serve, someone, and I can but I have to know the whole journey, like you just spoke to. So talk to me a little bit about, like, I don't know, also filmmakers get stuck on selling or not wanting to sell, feeling like that's like this dirty thing they don't want to do. But I also know that, like, serving over selling, like I wrote down that a quote that you said somewhere. It just says, you're not selling, you're serving. So talk to me a little bit about that.
Okay, well, I mean, going back to the agency thing, it's not binary. It's not an either or. Agencies will always get access to the very big brands. Always. They'll give you all the sexy work and give you the stuff that you need to get a great portfolio. And I work with agencies all the time. I'd say confidently, I need to check the stats this year, but usually it's between 40 to 50% of our revenue. So never stop doing that. It's just, like you said, it's a dangerous world to be in. It's like, because they control the narrative of the investments, because they're a middleman, and effectively, you're still doing a 4P journey for them. It's just you're a cog in machine as opposed to controlling the machine. So balance it with B2B. Now start small. Like when you just start out working with B2As, you're climbing this sort of, you're building the portfolio up. You sort of got to do the same thing for tangibility with the portfolio, so like a tangibility portfolio. So you have to like try to find businesses that you can try and support and learn with, and try to figure out how content can actually move the needle on something they care about, which is usually making money, or saving time. So I would say that it's paramount that you do learn to do 4P. Don't also be put off by the fact that it's a lot to learn. There are agencies, probably small boutique ones, that you can go to. And this is a double-edged sword here. You're killing 2 birds with 1 stone, whatever the phrase you want to use. But you can go to these agencies, pitch yourself for work, but also use it as an opportunity to partner with them, to bring them to the table when you have a B2B that you can serve and you feel like you can do more with. So like there is always 2 sides of the coin here that makes sense. So mind repeating your last question. I feel like I went on a bit of a tangent. What was the main question that you asked?
So the last part was just about your quote that I had written down. Is just, you're not selling, you're serving. And I think that's also just something that, I mean, creatives just feel like this selling thing. Oh God, I'd rather just go die. Like, I don't want to pick up the phone and do that. So how do you energetically shift into flipping that?
I see. It's a great question. Okay, so if I may just maybe walk you through like how a whole selling journey starts and ends. Like we have clients come to us in what I call 5 client acquisition method ways. So there's 5 ways we get business. One of them is word of mouth, which you've mentioned. Let's just say we're exploring networking events for the sake of this conversation. So I go to a networking event. The first thing I would tell everyone to adopt in terms of a mindset is that you're not there to sell, you're there to serve. And you can't serve someone unless you know how to serve them. So like a first class ticket is 20 times more expensive than economy, because the airlines have cracked on what they know their customers like in terms of how they're being served. That's obviously very simple, whatever. And the people will pay for that experience. So your job is to be a first class shooter. That's how you can elevate your price. So let's just go in there and just go, right, we are just data gathering right now. We are going into this networking event. I don't need the money. I'm actually here just to be as impactful as possible for whoever I meet. If we adopt that mindset, we don't then feel like we're on show and we're selling. Because I think you're true. Look, most filmmakers, even I meet, don't like the idea of selling. They think cheesy car salesman. Now, if you go up and meet someone, just say, hey, how you doing? Like, what brings you to this event? And someone says, I'm just here to make connections or maybe get some leads, and you go, okay, great. So I network quite a lot. Tell me who you're after, maybe I can help connect you. Instantly sell barriers go down, because the person's going to be receptive and go, oh, this guy's trying to help me, that's awesome. And it's literally just like going over to a girl at a bar. You're not going to go over to a girl at a bar and go, hey, will you marry me, or would you come home with me? They're just going to say, piss off. But what you do is you pitch the coffee date. So let's talk about the LAPS framework that I mentioned earlier: lead, appointment, presentation, sell. Selling is actually just getting the person to the next stage. You don't go from L to S. L to S is, will you marry me, when you first meet them?
Yeah.
You don't do that.
Yeah.
Your job is just to get in the room with them. Only if you feel like it's worth your time and it's worth theirs. So don't just go meeting random people. Just talk. And only if someone says, what do you do? Maybe mention it, but don't push on them. It's like when someone says to me, Tim, what do you do? I just say, I'm a content communication specialist. I just make it vague because it just creates curiosity. And then once I feel like I've asked enough questions, like, okay, who are you trying to meet? What's your service? What do you do exactly? I'll try and keep you front of mind for things. So what is the actual thing that you do? What's your service? How do you normally get clients? Is networking normally how you get clients, or do you dabble with other things? I'm sort of understanding how their business sort of works from a sales perspective. And my job is like a doctor, a content doctor in a way, is only to prescribe the medicine when I can see a bruise, press it, and feel like the content can actually make the needle move in the business. And at that point, most filmmakers should be comfortable to then take the appointment and then move to the appointment to presentation conversation, because you've got the premise already there that you know enough to know that content could be a solution for them. And why would no one want to have that conversation, providing it's done well, to talk about how this content service could help them? But again, you don't, if you're a very good salesman, you'll just ask the right questions and they'll want to work with you. It's not about convincing or forcing or tricking or trying to prove the value of content. It does my head in when filmmakers think their rates mean anything. Every business problem value is different. So yes, you have to factor a rate to make it viable, but you actually need to think, well, I just need to go out and fix the correct problems. Because I had this the other day. I had an event on. I had a multi-cam event. I had to hire a load of cameramen to come do an event coverage for me. I exhausted my crew. I needed freelancers, and I had some people saying, yeah, Tim, I'm $1,000 a day is my day rate. I'm like, dude, I'm just to let you know, I'm giving you the kit. I've given you an FX6 and a tripod. I just need you to stand there and just track the sod going up and down on stage. I've only got a 2,500 dirham budget, which is about £500-600 or dollars. I said, I can stretch it a little bit, but it's the problem value for me is only here. I'm not trying to undermine you. You come to it, you don't come to it. And this is what happens. Alex Hormozy now talks about this. There's 3 lines in business: cost, price, and value. Our job is to space these lines as far apart as possible. Between our costs and our prices are our margin. Between the price and the value of the client's problem is basically the return on investment the client gets. If the client's problem's here, then we're either forced to discount or walk away. And we just have to learn to walk away more, or learn to articulate the value of the content better. And this is where filmmakers get trust. They get stuck, sorry. It's not about fixing cheap problems. It's learning how to find a way where we can make whatever it is that the brief is more valuable, or yes, declining the work because it's a cheap problem. That's it. That's the decision we have to make.
Yes. And I think there's a mindset shift there. And I think it comes down to self-worth, knowing what you can provide. Because ultimately what I see happening, and I've heard this from a younger filmmaker recently, just being like, well, how do you get like these $100,000 budgets? And it's like, why would someone give me that amount of money? And I think it's the wrong way around, because they're thinking, well, I want to go make cool things with my camera and I want someone to give me $100,000, versus showing up, like you just said, asking all the questions, understanding what they actually care about in the world, what they value, what will actually create an impact for them. And then basically reverse engineer how you happen to have the tool that can help them do that. Is that what I'm hearing?
Exactly. Yeah. It's you don't offer someone something they don't need. Do you remember seeing that old, this was very big in the UK. You might not have had it in Canada, but there's this really funny, and not funny, but it's also quite true. There's a video that the government released. It's about consensual sex, and it's like offering, and they use the metaphor of offering someone tea. I don't know if you've seen this video.
No.
If you have a friend, like if you ask your friend, do you want a cup of tea, and they want a cup of tea, you give them a cup of tea. And if they don't want a cup of tea, that's okay. And it's this funny bit, you can Google it, like consensual sex / tea. I recommend everyone watch it. The funny thing is that it's the same with sales. People don't want to buy. It's like when you go into a store and a staff runs over to you and goes, "Can I help you?" And your first response is, "I'm fine. I'm just looking." And it's like, just leave me alone, chill, because I know you want my money. And it's like, that's what we have to learn to avoid, because every business is different. And when you have hard to understand services like content, because there's this easy to buy scale that exists, something like a mobile phone or like a watch, it's very easy to buy. But when you are buying something like a content service or a branding strategy or an investment plan or a lawyer, they sit on this hard to buy side. And the hard to buy requires rapport, trust, and a long buying journey, because the person doesn't know you and they know you're going to be expensive. And you just have to be sensitive to that. Okay. Especially when you're dealing with a business. Agencies are different because they know they've already got the budget. They know what they need. They need the second P executed. But it's very simple. Right. It's a very different conversation. But with B2B specifically, you've just got to learn to consult it that way. Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, and I guess most filmmakers, including myself, are playing in both camps. Like, we're working, and I don't know what percentage that is. You just said yours is like 40 to 50 or something, like working direct to agency and then direct to client. And they are, and I think we forget that there's a different experience involved with both. Like one is just like show up and execute and be the production brain that you know how to be and light it and shoot it and deliver it. And like, that's, for me, that's just like, I've done that a million times now. But it's the other part, the human bit of like, wow, if you're just approaching a company cold, like, wow, there are so many more steps. And like you just said, it's such a long journey to build rapport and trust and understand what you actually, what they actually value and how you can help them. As a filmmaker who is, let's just say you've done a lot of agency or work and that's kind of your main shtick, and you're looking to create more opportunity, reach out to brands, work directly with, projects that you're really excited about. And this is always a tough one. How do you begin to build relationships? Like, because people are like, oh, I don't want to cold outreach. Like, what do I do? Yeah. Message on LinkedIn? How do I DM them? What do I even say? Like, where do you begin with that process if you haven't been familiar with that side of things?
Okay, well, let me ask you, I can answer that question, but let me ask you a question first. So, Marshall, what is the weightage currently of the agency and business split that you have at the minute? What would you say that you've done over the years?
Over the years, it's been like 80-20, probably. Like directors and producers call me once a project's greenlit, and then 20% would be me doing outreach.
Okay, great. Now, what I would recommend is there's no, and as someone that's in the online education space that has a program that can help people, the online education system is very scammy. Okay, and there are salespeople everywhere that can claim that they can get you rich quick. It's all rubbish. All right, there's no hack, and every industry and geographical location is different. Like what works for me in sales will have something that transfers over to where you are, mate, that would work. But there will also be some things that are very unique to Canada's culture that wouldn't work. So the best thing I can suggest that you do, the quickest way for a client, for a filmmaker to get more clients right now, is to do what we call a lapse board analysis, which is take all your projects over the last 2-3 years and write down, John Smith, this project, the appointment presentation cell, obviously stage was complete. This was the deal size. This was the sort of products they built. They bought. Was it a commercial? Was it a corporate film? Was it a social media retainer? Whatever. Where was the source of the lead? Oh, this was referred from Greg, or this was a networking event, or this was a direct outreach. And do this for all your previously won work, because if you want to know how to move the needle quicker on business right now, is to do more of what worked already for you, because that's something no consultant can get the inside track on. You can. So you can do this analysis, and then you can look at the quotes that didn't go through, because the lost leads are still people that got to a quote stage and then you just fumbled it. So you fumbled the conversion. The acquisition was sorted, the conversion was the problem. So it's still worth looking at the roots there. So I would first start there. Going back to the 5 CAMs, there are 5 ways we get clients. So you mentioned direct outreach. Direct outreach has categories. So you've got LinkedIn, you've got cold calling, cold emails. This all bolts into the direct outreach category. I don't recommend doing direct outreach. I'm not a fan of LinkedIn, because when was the last time you bought something expensive off LinkedIn, mate? That's probably a question I should ask you.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
so
I don't know that I have. Yeah.
No. So, and anyone that messages you on LinkedIn, I mean, it's horrible. I mean, people are just trying to sell their business all the time. It's L to S, and people don't do that. But there's one area of direct outreach what I recommend. So networking technically falls under the direct outreach category, because you're going direct to a source. And the benefit to networking is it's a human to human place where people are going to be met. And you can, if you're good with your scripts, your lap scripts, we call them, so your L to A script is in this particular circumstance, you're able to work a room quite quickly. Now, I can work a room of 30 people and probably get through 10 prospects quite quickly and maybe walk away with 5 appointments. That's very easy for an input of an hour, output to 5 meetings booked. I don't know any other, if you're looking at cold outreach, I don't know any other cold outreach mechanism where that would be more effective. So I'd recommend networking. That's number 1 out of the 5. Second is content creation. Now, this works well. Content doesn't mean just social media content. It's just organic content made. This can work well in some industries. It doesn't work well for content creators. That's the irony. Why? Because content is a hard to understand service. We've spoken about this. So if something's hard to understand, content or social media is only a place to nurture and build rapport. It's actually more of a conversion tool more than an acquisition tool. So when I speak to filmmakers, they're like, I'm like, how are you getting your sales right now? What are you doing to try and fix your sales? I'm updating my website. I'm posting on social media. You're not going to get results. We're not going to get results that way, guys, because people are watching content on the toilet or in bed or late at night or in traffic. They're not in a buying mindset. They want to be entertained and they want to find something valuable. And again, use it as you do need it. I'm not going to say content creators don't go create content. That would be strange, but just remember it's a conversion tool. So when you send a warm prospect or a person you've met to your social media and they check you out, that's where your social media content is going to help you. But again, that's at the conversion stage, not the acquisition stage. So I wouldn't do number 2. The third one is paid advertising. Only works when you've got a product ecosystem, an established brand, and what you're selling is not your service. It's usually a lead magnet. So most filmmakers that are established could go out and create, again, here's an AI workflow that I use to create content for my clients that you can use for your business to avoid you hiring filmmakers. Or here's a scorecard health check to tell you where your business is in terms of where it's positioned against its competition with content. Or this is how I would use content to generate leads for your business. And it's nothing to do with, it's like a drug dealer hanging out as a free spliff. You'll get people coming for the bag if it's good enough. So this is where paid advertising works quite well. But you have to chuck money at it. You have to do split testing. You have to be a marketer. And if you want to learn how to do advertising well, do it for yourself. Because I think it's a safe space. You can dabble with it. It can be fruitful, but it's not going to be good for any content creator or filmmaker that's got no audience, no brand reputation, doesn't really know what they're doing. So I wouldn't advise it to start with. So warm up to it. And then the last 2 is partnerships and affiliates. This works very well. So forming relationships where you're basically getting what I call a referral source. So it's like a golden egg is a client, a golden goose is what you want to get. So joining a community that imagine partnering with a community owner or like an event organizer that basically puts on events for startups. Imagine saying, I'm going to support your community by doing all the content for free. They're going to chuck your branding everywhere. They're going to introduce you to entrepreneurs easier than you would do if you were working the room yourself. So ironically, by trade swapping, you're forming a partnership and you're going to make leads that way. So I highly recommend partnerships. You can do it with business coaches. You can do it with brands. I mean, I've got literally 10, 20, 30 partnerships out there and they always feed me with work. Agencies in a way are sort of like a partnership, but they're not. They're a B2A client, but you can get some agencies where you cross promote. So you hire them, they hire you. This sort of can work. So recommend that. And then the 5th one, word of mouth. There's 2 types. Reactive is when you do a good job and leads come to us. This is where most filmmakers sit and they're like, okay, this is the business coming to me. It's not proactive though. So it's very reactive. Yes. Proactive word of mouth is basically going into your phone book and forcing referrals. And this is where the biggest money is. I found, not that to say there is a magic pill, contradicting myself, but I would say that's where most money sits on basically our ecosystem right now. That and understanding our laps. So if you do your laps analysis and you do those 3 out of those 5 cams, I think you're pretty much golden and you will be busy with work. But may I stress, just to summarize all this up, you only trading your time for money has a ceiling. So the goal of all of us being as filmmakers is, are we doing a hobby that pays us or are we doing a business? Because if we're a business, our appetite for sales needs to be very, very high. And we need to learn how to systemize all of this and get out of executing. And that's the second mountain. Getting in the money is the first mountain. Getting out of doing it and doing the work is the second mountain. So, yeah. Sorry, that was a lot.
That's a lot. Yeah, but it's good. It's like the necessary recipe, let's say, to concoct, to actually move the needle. And I think, I mean, the voice I hear in the back of my head is filmmakers are like, I just want to be an artist. Like, Jesus, you just overwhelm the hell out of me. You know, and I think it's two paths, because I think you can, and this is what most of my journey has been also, is just like you said, it's like the fifth part where you just sit back. It all comes from referral. You know, most of my work comes from going for beers or coffees with people and connecting, and finding those strategic partnerships. And just like, also, I think like you just said, like posting on Instagram for me, it's like, has it ever produced a job? No. But when someone hears about my name, looks me up, all of a sudden I'm like now credible, because they're like, oh, look at all these projects he's worked on, all these brands, all these things. So I think, it's like understanding that. But the trick or the mistake I hear that you said there too is like filmmakers are like, oh, I'm slow on work, I should post some stuff on Instagram and I'll get some that will generate work and leads and all that sort of stuff. That's kind of more proof of your skill set. It's not the actual lead generation part, which I hate to say it, but like what you just said, picking up the phone and talking to people and just being a human and like listening and doing a bit of a discovery with them and catching up, like that has been the number one driver for me personally, in success when it comes to just like actually creating business. So that's interesting. And I will say though, going back to the very first part where you said you can walk in a room and work the leads and convert 30 into 5, like I'd say most filmmakers do not have that in them. Like that, like, you know, like the energy of going and working a room probably scares the shit out of them.
It's hard. You have to learn to do it though. It's a train. Confidence is something you can train. It's like a muscle. So if you're like the creative, nervous type and I can't work a room, it depends how badly you want it. Because I had to learn to do it to survive Dubai. I nearly went home 3 times because we didn't make enough money. So I had to learn this. And this is one, and I think the mountain that we climb with that, like trying to work a room, which I think scares a lot of people, is that we don't know how to do it. I think when you've got clarity on the system, then it's easy to just go in and then practice. And then it's a case of just learn. It's like, again, sorry to be crude and bring it back to dating, but when you get rejected by a few women, the rejections don't mean anything anymore. And then you get better at doing it. It's the same with sales. It's dating and pulling women is the same as sales. You know, if you read the book, The Game by Neil Strauss, it's the same, you know, in a way. Right. So that I think don't be put off by it. I think if you're really driven to make money, it's a great skill to form because it will serve you in this life and the next. It really would. Learning to be a good salesperson is not an evil thing. It's, if anything, it's going to enhance you in every area because you're going to be aware of conversations and how to sell yourself better on set and sell a proposal better. Like it's a necessary skill as a creative to learn the fundamental, actual purposeful driving force behind why they're investing in content. If we neglect that, we are only ever surface our client surface level, and we'll never be rebought or be able to do retained business, and we'll always be in this trap of doing a hobby that pays us. I cannot stress that we have not, especially with AI, not around the corner, it's here. With AI here, we have to learn to become more valuable. If we don't, we will be replaced. So I'm just putting that out there. That's my view.
Yeah, maybe Shotlist should become like, you know, the business and lifestyle, not only behind filmmaking and photography, but also for people seeking out dating advice. This sounds like what we're talking about here.
Yeah, exactly.
When it comes to, I want to go dive into like a very niche part of all of this, and that's like the pitching side of it. So I think a lot of filmmakers, photographers are like, I want to go work for that brand, and whomever that is, they've put up on the board in front of them and say, that's my dream client. How would said person go about, because that's a long process, like they don't have any contacts at that company, they really don't even understand who hires them there, maybe they don't even have that part in their portfolio. Like, where do you begin that journey of landing that dream client?
I mean, it's a very hard one to articulate because there are variables. Like you've mentioned a few, like don't know anyone there. Like if you know someone there, it sort of puts you in, like it gets you on the right foot. Having the portfolio to support why they would award you the business is also another variable. Being able to get in touch and understand your sales process well. Because like these people, if you're looking at I'm assuming you're talking about like an attractive brand. Most attractive brands will be plagued with requests for people to work with them. So they're going to only want to go to people that, again, understand the strategy as well as the creative. So this boils back then to what sort of you've highlighted that most creators may have that resistance to learn 4Ps or learn to be more selly. They'll just want to hang their hat. So I would say the only way for you to, if you're speaking to like your conventional filmmaker that's in this sort of creative lane only, the only way you can probably try and get close to a brand like that is to maybe go find the agency that supported them in the past and find a way where you can work through an agency. Because, and again, it depends on what you're, when you say get that client, do you mean a client in a 4P sense or a 1P sense? Because it just sounds like what you're saying, mate, is that people would love to have the brand associated to their portfolio. Am I right understanding that?
I guess I'm thinking more as the filmmaker, as the creative, just wanting to be like, I shot for Mac, I shot for Google, I shot for Architects, whatever it might be.
Well, all my big names. I mean, I do now have big clients on my roster. Like I work with Costa Coffee, Coca-Cola. I work with Uber. I work with Red Bull direct. So I do have brands that I do work with direct. But all of the for years, I only have access to my big brands through agencies. So I would say just go and build rapport with as many agencies as you can. Because try to be a master of your craft when it comes to creative, and learn to just build a great portfolio that agencies will go, wow, we should totally get that guy to execute this campaign for our client because that's going to make us look really good. So this is where being really, really good at your craft does have weight. Again, the issue with that though is that ceiling is low and it comes quick. So staying in a B to A servicing lane, if that's your vibe, and you want to just trade your time for money, but you know that, it's not going to pay you long term for the majority of us, there's nothing wrong with that. Fine, just play in that lane, but I just wouldn't recommend it for too long. Do it for a few years and then keep it as a side thing. I'm sort of diverting away from your question now, but going back to how do you get the dream client, it's befriending the agency that usually has served them if they're big. If they're not, just try going into a network and see if they can get in touch with someone. Maybe it's a small business if it's a small business, you'll be surprised how easy it is to get in touch with them just by simply picking up the phone, going on a door-to-door, emailing them a few times, asking friends if you know the owners or anyone that works there. You've got to leverage your network and just be persistent. Like sending out 1 or 2 emails or a LinkedIn request is not enough. It's not. We have to. Persistence is one of the big ones. And again, learning what to say. Saying the right thing is also half the battle, because just pitching L to S just does not get you anywhere. It does not.
Yeah. So coming back to where we began the conversation was more around, showing up, positioning yourself as someone who wants to learn, someone who is curious, someone who wants to understand what their problems are and how you might be able to help them, and not that you need to give them anything, right? I think that's a energetic piece and then coming back to dating, it's just so perfect. It's like when, in my case, speaking with another female, it's like when she feels you want to connect more than she does, like, the vibe gets killed when it's more like, hey, just like, I'm here to discover and play and be curious and just like understand more about you. All of a sudden the energy goes the other way.
That's very nicely put. Yeah, exactly.
To dive into specifics here, because I love going like, broad and then kind of cutting right in. When it comes to like sales and negotiation, I think this is something that like a lot of filmmakers, photographers can flop on. So you get the warm lead, the referral, you got them on the Zoom call, you're talking about, are you the right fit for the job? And then you're like talking numbers and creative, and it kind of gets really blurry. Like in that sales negotiation part, do you have any advice in that arena to help people when it comes to like that? Because I think, oftentimes we're bidding against each other, or we under quoting or over quoting or any of that kind of in that arena.
Great question. So underquoting, over quoting only is applicable if you know either the budget or the value of the problem. Most clients will have this, what's your budget? What's your rate? And that sort of back and forth, which we all know exists, I'm sure we've had it, is this vicious loop that I don't recommend people go down. When you're working with an agency, they'll usually have budgets. So it's a very different conversation. Are we talking about a business to agency transaction here, or are we talking about a B2B transaction here? Because the advice I would give in what we call the discovery is very different. So what would you say is more valuable?
Both, to be honest. So why don't we start with like, you're talking to an agency, they have a budget, perhaps they haven't told you. Let's start there.
Okay. So remember, the person's going to go with the person they know, like, and trust the most. It's not, I don't think the majority of us want to go with the cheapest all the time. If we feel like we've got a great rapport with that person and they believe they're going to do the best job, I think people will find the money for something. You know, because you just have to come across quite right. And I think that's advice for B2B and B2A. So how it differs between a B2B and a B2A is B2B, you go more into the actual driving motive for the investment. For the B2A, you've got to just think to yourself, if I'm speaking to an entrepreneur, they care about making money. All right, I know they want this film. They want this commercial. They maybe want this hero corporate brand story film to make them look great, whatever. But they actually care about leads. What does the agency care about? Because we're speaking to an employee here. We're not going to be speaking to the end client or even the agency owner. We're probably going to be speaking to an account handler or account manager or creative director or whatever. And you've got to think, what do they care about? Now, Marshall, what do you like? If you were speaking to one of your producers or one of the people that you work with, what do you think motivates them to go, okay, this is what I value. If this was to go very, very well, what would you say is their driving force? Because it's not going to be sales, because they're not the end client. So what would you say they value from your perspective?
Yeah, I mean, baseline, table stakes, your portfolio is on point with what they're actually after, meaning the trust that you can execute and make them look good to their boss exists already, because I think they're putting a lot on the line, being like, I'm choosing you, and if you screw this up, I'm going to look bad. So I think that, like, first and foremost, you have to have the chops to have proven that you can do it. But I think once that's proven, in my opinion, it comes down to, like, do I like this person? Are we gonna have fun on set? Like, is this an enjoyable relationship to be having? And I think those are the two most important things I've felt, because oftentimes I would say, even if your work is slightly not as good as your competitor, but you have a better friendship with them, and you know, you're going to have a drink after the shoot together, like, they're probably going to be incentivized to go your way. Does that what do you think?
No, you couldn't have said it better myself. Like, honestly, that's perfect. And if you're right, it's looking good in front of their client or their boss or whatever, trusting that you'll do a cracking job, because you are the cog in the machine. If you fail, the machine fails. So you've got to basically, and what I say is, find the bruise. In the discovery, you are finding the bruise. So the bruise for the agency would be, I understand what you're hired for. I understand we've got to deliver on these KPIs, and this is the creative sort of expectation you have. And it's finding a way to garnish ways you can over deliver. You know, like, if I have a client on set that's wanted to hire me to do a commercial, and I'm just coming with me and my camera, and it's quite a lean sort of like social commercial and stuff, like, I always come along with like extra wireless monitors or like Holylands and stuff. And it's little things like this which agencies love, because they feel like they're on a big set, and it's the customer experience. So you've got to find ways in which would enhance the customer experience if you were to get the job. It's also understanding, like, in terms of the assets and deliverables and the KPIs that they're bound by, what can you do to make that easier, quicker, higher quality, and probably more of it? Because most content gets unused. Like, you go shoot for the asset and the asset goes, and then the rest of the content's yours. Most filmmakers I speak to get caught up on releasing rushes and raws. I just think, just over deliver, just like do what you can to add more value. The minimal I mean, you could say, oh, I'm not being paid to do all that, and that's not very profitable, but the minimal amount of extra work that you have to do to make the experience to the customer extraordinary versus the acquisition cost of going out to get more work is a lot more expensive. So, like, this is, if I had to gauge anything, or gauge a B2A conversation, it would be getting to understand the KPI objectives of the actual brief, which is similar to a B2B. Understand what you have to do to be super successful for them. What can I do to knock this out the park for you? What are you expecting? Align very, very clearly in the creative. Look at ancillary content, even if they're not asking for it. Look at longevity. What else can we do to blow this client away? And talk to them like you're their team member. I think that's the best advice I give. Not overcomplicate it. Try not to go too strategic, and then just knock it out the fucking park when, pardon my French, knock it out the park when you get on set with them, if you get awarded the job. Because I can't stress that once they think, oh, this guy, yeah, he gets us, he knows what he's doing, and it's not just the content, it's the vibe as well, and your great experience, you will have jobs flowing in all the time. And that's why retention always wins. At acquisition, conversion, retention will always be our compounder for word of mouth business, because if you do a good job, they'll come back. A lifetime value for us is very high with the client. So yeah, that's how I would steer that conversation.
Yeah, I just want to throw out two practical things I've done myself that you just kind of jotted my memory on. But you mentioned monitors. it is so much about this experience they're having on set. And oftentimes, like maybe if I don't bring a client monitor on some set and you just, like, oh, the budget's not there or whatever. And then they're kind of looking over your shoulder awkwardly. And like that creates some interesting energy, like versus like, you know what, just like, yeah, rent an extra bit monitor, run an SDI if you don't have money to have the wireless. Like that's something very practical that you can do. And that just, again, yeah, you created this experience. And I think a lot of people, they remember oftentimes the content is whatever. 2 years from now, they're like, cool, that piece has now died on the internet, whatever. But I remember the experience Marshall gave me. Like on his set, it was fun. I could see what everything was going. I felt like I was a part of the team. And like, so I very much, as a practical thing, I think that is one thing that's really cool that you mentioned. One other thing that I've done is to show you said over deliver, to show the over delivery, I say with a director specifically, who's hired me, or even a producer. After I've shot all the footage, even though maybe it's just a card dump that's going to an editor, if I go and upload all that to Premiere myself, I go in and cut through and I look at I could just cut a bunch of selects and then I go through and open up Loom, which is like screen recording software. And I just talk through being like, hey, this is how, like, these are some of my favorite shots. Here's the moment that I really love. This is why I think it worked. And just send them like, thank you for like bringing me on. This was an amazing shoot. And like, I've had that land really well. Because like, oh, this guy didn't just card dump and run away. He said, like,
lovely.
Oh, this guy cares and he wants to show me what we actually made together. So,
if I may just tie it back to the first class economy ticket thing, like economy and first class, let's be honest, guys, it's the same product. You get on a plane, your baggage goes with you, you land, you get there. You don't land there any quicker. People pay 20 times more because there's little details across the entire experience. You're made to feel special. And I cannot stress that if we have that outlook with our service, how do we become a first-class filmmaker? You will have incredible compound retention of business and you'll get a lot more agency work. And I mean, that's advice actually to businesses and to agencies as well. It doesn't matter whether it's B2B or B2A. That is definitely very solid advice. And I love that idea with the Loom thing. That's awesome. I think that's really cool. Nice idea. Yeah, well.
Cool. Even on that note, I've done that with contracts. I find if you have a new relationship with an agency or like a new creative director, an agency, something like that, if you put together if you're going through the quote or you want to go through the quote and maybe you not jumped on a Zoom call about it, the first thing I would do is just like pop up a Loom, be like, hey, this is, ABC, here are all the line items. Here's why I've chosen these things. Like, let's talk about this in a later conversation. Just wanted to like run you through it real quick. So they don't feel like they have to get an hour call. Oh shit, I'm so busy. But they're like, oh, I get it now. This guy just talked me through the whole like contract in 2 minutes. So that's another thing I'd recommend.
Yeah, I mean, I would always stress, try to, when you send a quote out to an agency as well, like don't just do like you say, an email dump, because they're just going to go straight to the bottom and not understand it. And also another one, send a lean and a premium. Never send a one quote, because you send a quote, the decision is either a yes or a no. A lean and a premium basically means that you're malleable. And I think you can dictate what you send, and you can say, look, just to let you know, these are conversation starters and maybe off the mark. I'm very driven to work with you on this. Why don't we go on a call and we'll go through how each one can maybe work for you? Maybe there's a happy medium. Maybe we can adjust some things. It's not saying you're discounting, because it's just trying to figure out whether your solution matches the vibe, because there's so many variables that this agency is dealing with. They might be dealing with bad budgets, but the next project they might have good budgets. So again, not always turning down. Sometimes walking away can hurt, because especially if you're new as a new filmmaker, you need as many clients as you can get. You should only be picky with your clients when you're in a position where you're oversubscribed. If you're not oversubscribed, you need to lose the ego and just be willing to be flexible, I think. So I'm very like pro discounting and finding ways to add value. I'm the complete opposite to what other business coaches, I guess, would say when it comes to don't discount your services. I'm the opposite. It does depend on your journey, though.
Right. Yeah. Tell me more. Okay, lean and premium. What does that actually look like on paper?
Okay, so if I did a proposal for a school the other day, a school content to me called King's Education. They have a hero brand story film they want to make, because they have 3 different schools with very different identities, and they wanted to create this big sort of film that links them all together in like 90 seconds. Which I expressed in the discovery is quite a challenge, because you've got 3 very different schools. How do you do that in 90 seconds? So we came up with some creative ideas, and I said, look, we are going to give you 3 options: a bronze, silver, and a gold, in a way. The bronze the goal, just to go for the goal first, we understand that you guys are creating this asset for these reasons, did all the pain, bruise, pressing, discovery stuff like I would speak to any B2B. I think we should create a hero film and then 3 other films, one for each school, that allows people to go deeper should they find the film interesting. So with the silver, we did something in between, and then bronze was basically just the hero film with the 3 school films. What it did is it gave us a great, in a way, foundation for the client to go, okay, they understood our brief, added value even in the leanest capacity. We're in budget, but they've also highlighted what we can do with a little bit more investment. We've actually landed somewhere in the middle, which is incredible. So having a bronze, silver, gold, or a lean and a premium opens up the conversation to show that you understand the brief and the objective, and you're malleable with price. That's the reason why I say it's a good thing to do.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. And I just did that, and direct to B2B pitch as well. And originally I asked a line producer to come up with the numbers. And then I was like, okay, well, now we need to go like, where's our bottom line? And then what is something that's like, dreaming of on the other side? And then where can we, and ideally you're pointing them in the middle. Like it's like right off the bottom line plus a bit of an upsell that but I think maybe tell me about though, structuring that, because that's something I actually just recently went through, is like, there's 2 things I saw. On a crew side, let's say a normal line producer, they're looking at like, oh, things cost. We want to have someone recording sound. I want to have a first AD. I want to have the producer and the grip graph swing and all the things. At the end of the day, I could condense that. But the client doesn't give a shit. They could care less. They care about the end product. So when you're bidding that, how can you show the value when separating those packages? It sounds like your gold one here was like 3 extra films, including the hero. But when it comes to differentiating what you're giving them, are there other things to weigh those packages out so that the client's value they see, they can actually physically see it, not just like less crew, more crew, or sexier lenses, basic lenses? Like they don't care.
No, clients don't care about kit. I can count on one how many times clients have actually requested kit that isn't of another production house, to be honest. It really is not important. Okay, so assets, number of assets are important. And then showing how the assets corresponds with how you feel they're going to use those assets. So again, sort of dabbling a little bit with the publishing and promoting plan that they're probably doing. You're not going into a coaching space with them, but you're like, I imagine you're probably going to use this, and this way. Maybe some other stuff that would help. Just helps open up their mind a bit more. More people on set doesn't always mean more speed. I think sometimes, and again, most filmmakers I meet, they're solo people that might lean on the odd AC, grip, or gaffer or whatever to help make their job more perfect. But you've got to make money as well. Like, I think it's better for you to, rather than hiring more people and accruing more overheads with your job, to just do more days and keep it more internal in the beginning. My advice will obviously vary, like Marshall, depending on what filmmaker we're speaking to, but you want to try and maximize your internal profit because you can basically give more. So yeah, and obviously little things like the wireless monitors we spoke about, the HoloLens, some extra kit just to make the job better. If you can make the image look sexier, I mean, that's where gear is relevant. If you can spend more time lighting an interview better, yes, that will add impact. But, like the other day I did a shoot for Vice and I had an interview that I was doing for this UFC, the Dark Side of the Cage I was doing an interview for that. And we had like a 10 lighting thing set up for it. And it was a very nice interview block, but could it have been done with 3 lights? Yes. Or 2 lights? Yes. Right. And sometimes less is more. So I would just say you need to get that balance right, depending on the sort of deliverable, the quality expectation, the crew size, the assets, and probably creative prep. I would say that a lot of us don't probably think about the creative prep. Like, we can create storyboards so easy now where they are, like going out of the way, even if it's not been costed for, just to scope a little storyboard. I think there's a great little add-on that clients can get, especially someone who's not production minded. Like, so this is how the film's going to flow. Oh, that's quite cool. And just spending a bit of time learning how to do that, I think just helps just elevate and, just makes things a lot more easier and cohesive, I think, for the client's experience. Yeah.
Have you AI storyboarded before? Like, I haven't done that. Do you have any recommendations for software or things that do that?
Yeah. I mean, I use Midjourney quite a lot. I know there are lots of others. There's Seedance now and Nana Banana and loads of stuff. But I mean, like, it's consistency. But I mean, storyboards are, we're not talking about features and like high-end commercials here. Like storyboards are just basically just you capturing a frame and saying, how does it go from this to this to this? It's basically breaking down a creative approach of a film before you shoot it. So yeah, if you can add this into your workflow, don't do it for every job. If you're getting a $1,000 job next week and it's for something small and like an interview,
yes, no, I
you don't need to do it.
Sure.
But if you're doing like a $10,000 little micro social media campaign thing, invest the energy. It takes a couple of hours to do. There's so many people online now that know how to do this stuff. Like, dabble with outsourcing. One of the best things I would try and stress that filmmakers do is get used to delegating. Like, if you don't want to look at your proposals and your blueprints of how you pitch for work. Do you think it can be designed better? Hire a designer. Like, we are very easy to go out and buy, the new like 50 mil 1.2. Great. I'll drop $2,000 on that. We've got no problem doing that, but we won't spend that on assets to help improve the way we serve our clients. Like, a client's like, I went out and bought the 50 mil 1.2 the other day, and I got a 50 mil 1.4. Why did I do that? It's not, who's going to notice the 1. You are a trained DP, Marshall, and you probably wouldn't notice the difference between a 1.2 and a 1.4. You wouldn't really. Right. So so we just need to, we are prepared to spend. We just need to understand that soft assets as well as hard assets are important, So
that's such a good point around gear. I think, oh man, the gear rabbit hole for most people can get pretty aggressive. And I feel like I've gone through ebbs and flows of that in my career. I've gone like super deep down the rabbit hole of buying all the gear and owning all the things, the red camera, the wireless monitors, and all the pieces, and then actually like downscaling too. I've like, got bigger, then I've shrunk, and then I've like find the middle ground. And so, I mean, that kind of leads into
what do you shoot now? If you don't mind me asking, what's your weapon choice?
So I had I built my career on an FS7, Sony FS7. Then I moved to a Red Raptor, which is the big, and I bought a Red Raptor and a Red Komodo at the same time, and all the things, because I had a big job that was going to basically rent them out all summer and pay for half of them in one go. And then I downgraded back to an FX9, and just been kind of like also then renting bigger cinema cameras when needed, whatever the RE or whatever is needed. And then I own a set of I own a set of Zeiss Otis Primes, which like kind of the f1.4 full frame, and they're converted to the cine side of things. So that's kind of. Yeah, but I have enough kit. For example, I have like a wireless director's monitor, 7-inch, that has the Teradek and built in. And every time to give that to someone, it makes the set, like whoever it is, if I give it to a creative director or the director or whoever it is, like that is an instant boost of excitement and like engagement. I would say the other random thing is having headsets for crew. That's been a big, I don't know, just so you're not yelling at each other. And it just makes the set nice and calm. That's been another like quality, low money investment, I would say, if you're thinking about gear.
You can also have, if it's just with your internal crew as well, you can be a bit like edgy with it and do some funny banter jokes and stuff as well on set.
Correct. It keeps things a little bit alive.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a good culture asset.
But that leads into kind of coming to one of my last questions here, isn't around money. And I mean, filmmakers and money, oh man, like you just said, we justify all of the cash into like a $2,000 lens purchase, but like ultimately, how do we shift the mindset into like profitability? Like, because ultimately, if we keep buying gear, essentially the business is just eating our money, and we're getting a bunch of shiny objects that are very expensive that are sitting on our shelf as soon as the work dries up. So how do you look at like how much you're spending on gear versus holding for revenue? Like, how do you energetically or actually maybe more strategically spreadsheet that? Is there any systems you have in place for that, or what does it look like?
Yeah, if you're renting the kit more than if you're renting the kit quite a lot and you're going to pay for itself quite quickly if you were to buy it, then that's a good indication that you should buy that piece of equipment. Otherwise, I think you can get away with almost anything. Like, I've got guys in my community that don't actually own a camera and turn over $10,000+ a month, and they're shooting with their phone half the time. Right. That's the world we're living. I know that makes me feel like, oh, really? Shit with your phone? That's like not my vibe at all. But the point is like the gear, shiny object syndrome. You said it perfectly. Like, I would say, like, again, advice different for different people. you need to have the basics. You need to have your gear, your lenses, but you don't need to have your crazy primes. You don't need to have like extreme lighting. You might need a couple of panels or like a 300
says
watt
the guy that bought the
something.
1.2 there. Nice.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, true. I know. Don't do what I do. Do as I say, guys.
That's right.
But no, but like to be honest, you've got to be sensitive, because like look at like a business. You want to maximize your profit, right? And you don't want to have to constantly keep reinvesting. You will need to reinvest, but investing is not just with gear, it's soft assets as well. Like, when was the last time people spent proper money in learning how to, like you say, sell, network, website, portfolio, outsourcing assets? Like, how do I improve this? So is there a spreadsheet? There's no sheet. I think you just have to look at it like, I need this equipment all the time, I'm having to rent it. Then that becomes an item that you need to purchase, because it's dead money. It makes sense for you to own that asset because it will pay for itself quite quickly. If you feel like you are just wanting it to enhance, then you need to justify it. So if you are wanting some vintage lenses because you want to create something that's more creative, or you want to pay for some anamorphic lenses because you like the way it looks, then, without sounding crude again, that's just gear masturbation, mate. There's nothing wrong with it. You want to go buy it, buy it. But is it a business choice, or is it a logical purchase or an emotional purchase? And I think most filmmakers will be in this emotional scape. So I would say you can get away with an awful lot. Like I run my business on a couple of FX6s and FX3. I've got a lot more kit, but I run my business mainly on a couple of FX6s, FX3s. Shoot with the FX30s quite a lot because I could get 3 of them for the price of one FX3 almost. We have like some 500Cs, 300Ds, 300Xs, and some apertures and nan lights and some tripods, and we turn over 7 figures with that. Like I rarely shoot with the Venice, Aries. I do shoot with them, but like the kit that I use on a day-to-day, I think people would be shocked that we do an awful lot with very little. And that's because for me, I'd rather have 2 FX30s than one FX3, because I can have 2 units working for me at once and I can make double bubble. I think that's what's more important. Look at it like a business. Challenge every purchase like you are consulting yourself. You have to be ruthless.
Yeah, that's one thing especially like with the red camera purchase, like it very much, I learned afterwards the business side of buying very expensive camera gear, because the way I went about that is I took a 5-year lease to own on that camera, which meant there was a monthly bill coming out of $1,200 in the beginning. Because I rented it out all summer on one big job, I paid off half of the value of that camera in one summer. Wow. I was like, great, that's an insane, like already, I took a 5-year lease to own. In half a year, I paid off half of it. Great. If that job did not exist, that could have been a very risky thing. I took that. I purchased the camera before the job even existed, because it was kind of a way I sold onto that job. Very unique, specific scenario. Okay.
Yeah.
But after that job ended, luckily the economy was moving, turning, and it kept getting rented out enough to pay for that monthly bill. But when the economy slowed down, all of a sudden I had this very expensive shiny camera sitting on the shelf collecting dust with the bill still existing. So the lesson I learned is that still, it's like holding a stock too long. I felt like it got its value, it paid itself off twice, but then I held it too long when the economy slowed down, and no longer was anyone willing to pay the rates. The rental rates in the market had almost halved for that specific camera. The value of that camera was dropping because new cameras had been released. And I was like, okay, actually strategically from a business spreadsheet situation, not my ego who wants to have the red camera, but my spreadsheet, being like, is this make sense to hold on to, or can I just rent it, and not be bleeding cash? And so that was where I actually made the business decision to sell it. And actually let's like downgrade for the time being, and maybe the market, and maybe something else calls me into something like, buying something very expensive in the future. But for now, that was my logical process around owning gear. And I think, like you said, though, most people don't think about logic. It's an emotional thing. Like, I want the fancy red camera, so I'm just going to bleed money to own it.
Yeah. I mean, so true. I think, if I may just go into a little bit of finance sort of advising, if I may just use this as an opportunity. For years, I didn't do this. Learn, it sounds very basic what I'm going to say, but I think it will help some people because I didn't know this. Learn to separate your business in different buckets. So like you have your operating costs, okay? Your operating costs in your business are things that you need to pay every month regardless, like your softwares, trade license, for example, because I'm in Dubai, I have to pay every year to trade. It's like paying your tax up front. You have to pay office rent, blah, blah, blah. Like all the things that are necessary, staff, if you've got staff. That's one thing. And then you have your projects that come in. When the projects come in, if I have a job that's $100,000 and I have $20,000 worth of drone pilots to pay because I have to hire them, then I have 80,000 gross profit. So understanding that project costs and expenses are very different. When you understand this information, you need to start then analyzing projects and working out what jobs are more profitable than others, and you should score them. So you should project analyze. And I have spreadsheets and spreadsheets for this. And then when you know all this information, you know your gross very well, you're then very able to work out your P&L against your ops. Most filmmakers I meet do not know how profitable they are. Like, what was your P&L last week? Or what's your pipeline like? What's your forecast looking at? And it's shocking that I also was like this. I didn't do this for years. I just put my head in the sand. Oh, I'm getting jobs in, getting revenue in, and I'm not paying attention to what I'm actually making. And when you start analyzing that, what you measure grows, right? Is a famous saying. Same thing with laps, the sales activity. Same thing with your finances. There's no point you doing everything we spoke about on this podcast today. There's no point doing any of this if the numbers are not making sense. If you are not turning over profit at the end of the year, the model is broken. Now, if you have to front load an investment to get some ROI, like what you did with that red camera, that doesn't sound like it was a bad purchase. Having more than half of it paid off for the job makes complete sense. I probably would have done the same. But we've all made bad decisions with gear. It's also other things as well. So just be always aware of measuring your numbers, guys. If you can measure your finances well and understand that, like, just take a bit of time to just study and understand how basic business economics work with numbers. You'll be surprised how quickly that can help steer you with knowing where you should invest your time and energy and money. And you can always rent. Like I love owning equipment. I've got 20 plus cameras in my production house. I've got gear that I've got 2 like almost brand new P&W 55s that I hardly use that are god old now. Like no one would ever use them, but they're still great cameras. They still shoot 16-bit RAW, and they're nearly 12 years old now. Like and they would still be perfectly fine today if we use them. It's crazy, like the amount of money we waste on gear. So yeah, measure your numbers. It should be a good way to validate whether your purchases make sense or not, and just cross-check it against work, like you say.
Yeah. Are there any spreadsheets like that or examples of templates or things you use to do that? Because I think oftentimes I can just see filmmakers be like, okay, well, I don't know. How do I compare if this is a valuable purchase or not? Like, how do you justify this on a spreadsheet? Or like, how do I know track the revenue in my jobs? Like you said, obviously you just gave the good example of, okay, well, I got to pay 20% is going to drone pilots, but the rest is profit, and then measuring those. Like, is there some sort of template or system you like to use more specifically, or?
Well, I've built mine. I mean, I've got a company accountant in my business, so I've actually got a guy that creates spreadsheets now for me, and we've perfected the systems and the templates over the years. But the principle is very straightforward. You just have to calculate the revenue that comes in, obviously the costs that are associated to it, and then there's one more layer as well, which is obviously you need to measure the actual team internal time it took internally for you to execute it, because then that gives you that sort of profit per team day sort of equation, which I think is actually a really sort of like, it's like a metric we don't really pay attention to. Like I might make $80,000 on that job that I just spoke about, but if it took me more than 3 months to execute it, that's not a good job. It may look good on the books, but if it's taken 48 days to execute it, that is not a good amount of money. So it's just basically working out a spreadsheet that does that. And then once you have all these numbers then summarized in a dashboard at the top, just have a different spreadsheet for almost every job. And then just have if you can, and again, you can hire people on Fiverr for this, just you want to have one like extra Excel sheet or one extra tab on this same Excel that just basically just takes all the different summaries and just puts it to a table and analyzes it. You can, for the sake of $200-300, hire someone anywhere to do something like this. It wouldn't be, or even hire an accountant. It's not what I'm saying. It's not gobbledygook to a company accountant or someone as that. It's just we just find it all confusing. We don't have to do everything ourselves, Marshall. I think that's the lesson here. If you don't know how to create a great website, outsource it. If you don't know how to if you don't know how to sell, sorry, get someone to teach you. Or if you don't know how to measure your numbers, that's fine. Either hire someone or get someone to build the spreadsheet for you. Invest in the things 100%. That will actually make you the money and get you more efficient, because the game here, I know I have this program called Financially Free Filmmaker. The actual race we're in is actually to get time back, because if we can eventually get our revenue and our sort of like income sort of covering our expenses, technically that's financial freedom. But what we really want here is to have the time and the autonomy to do the work that we want. I think that's the goal for every filmmaker, is to never leave the industry. Even if someone said, Tim, here is $100 million right now for your production house, and you can just stop everything you're doing, I would still shoot. And I think we're all wired that way. So I think we just all want to have that autonomy to just shoot what we want. That's the name of the game. Learn to delegate and invest in the different things that I say. But going back to your question, yes, there are templates. I have my own built. I don't mind sharing a couple with your audience, so that are ones that are watching. I could do it as a little like free lead magnet for this thing. That's fine. But ultimately, you can hire anyone you want to do this sort of stuff. I would say probably the more useful asset I can give you free on this podcast would probably be a lap sport template, because that's the sales. That's probably more of a important thing for people than I think measuring the profitability of the work they may or may not have. So I think the lap sport template I could give you, which probably would be better.
Okay, let's do that. Yeah, I'll link that in the show notes.
Cool.
A quote that it was just said that kind of summarizes everything we just said. A friend told me, and we were talking about this exact thing: get $100,000 for a job. You're being a production company, but the amount he's making is 10 grand at the end of the day, after he's paid all the people and done all the things. And the saying is, revenue is vanity, profit is clarity. And I think that just really rings true to what we're speaking to here.
So true.
Well, before we bounce, I mean, you got the sign behind you, Financially Free Filmmaker. Why don't you just tell me a little bit about what you do, what that program is, or if people are interested.
Great. Okay, so I created Financially Free Filmmaker as a sort of, actually, it wasn't something that I created out of thin air. I've been a Sony ambassador for about 6 years now, and Sony, after a few years, after like year one or so, were like, Tim, we're going to still have you do like the gear and the lighting and the storytelling workshops, because that's what they get me to do around the MENA region. But they said, we'd like to also get you to sort of expand on how to navigate the production industry from a business perspective, because you run a team. Not many ambassadors in the Sony sort of brand are running teams. They're sort of solo guys. At first, I was a little bit like, not sure if this is going to go down well, but we'll try it. And I think I had like 5 consecutive workshops where people stayed 2-3 hours after the workshop and they left with more questions than they did answers. And Sony said at one point, like, Tim, you really need to just create something. It's not of our interest, but you should create something that is a place where you can send people to after your workshop. So I created Financially Free Filmmaker about 3-4 years ago. And it started off as like me just testing if what I had value. I took on a handful of students and almost coached them for a year free of charge. Most of them made impact. I wanted to test that what I had actually had weight. It's a program that's not, I don't know, cliche as it sounds, I'm not in it for the money. It is a paid program, yes, but I dedicate my time to the students that join one-to-one. I take about 20-30 students a year because I can't do more than that because it's just too taxing otherwise. And I'm in a journey right now where I just want this to be a very, very valuable community for everyone. And it's got about 62 students right now over the last 3 or 4 years. So it's not a massive program, but I put a lot of energy into making sure that it's amazing. And right now, as I'm talking to you, I'm looking at the WhatsApp group going right now, and people are helping each other, giving each other work. It's a very, very rewarding thing. So it's a program where you get access to me as a business coach, not 24/7, but you can contact me as much as you want, and I'll always make time for you for a year. And then it's 2 years access to a load of material, assets, and things that I've done. So everything we spoke about, it's in there, it's organized. I teach you how to do acquisition, conversion, and retention, build a team, financially structure your business. It's the sales, operational, finance, the 3 main departments of every business all rolled into one program, with me keeping you accountable to it and guiding you along the way. So that's the short version description of what it is that we do. And it's for specifically filmmakers. I mean, it's a business program that would work with almost any entrepreneur, but I want to help filmmakers because I was doing it wrong for so many years. And I'm very passionate about growing it into an incredible brand. I mean, hopefully it is an incredible brand already, but I hope it's going to be big one day. But right now I'm enjoying it being the size that it is. And it's something I really care about.
Yeah, I feel that from you. I feel it's not oftentimes that filmmakers lean this hard into the teams and the business and the like sales and the fundament, like the whole life cycle of making a life and a living behind the lens, which is what this podcast is about. So I can definitely feel that. Also just wanting to share and help from you, in our earlier conversations, it's not like you're trying to sell some program. I do feel that you're genuinely here for the same reason I am, which is just, show up and help create the thing in the world you wish existed is definitely why I'm here.
And what I can do, I think, as a little way of paying it forward, anyone that comes from this podcast, providing that you quote that you come from this podcast, I'm very happy to actually do like a 45-minute coaching call with you. We can talk about the program if you feel it's applicable, but it won't be pitched as a sales call for the program. I'm very happy just to share some extra advice and listen to your situation. If I can give you any intel, I'll be very happy to do that. So anyone listening that's keen to do a 30, 45-minute chat, I'm very happy to do that in honor to this great podcast that Marshal's created.
Yeah, thanks for that, Tim. Appreciate that.
No worries.
I'm sure people will jump onto that. So careful.
No worries. That's okay. I don't mind. It's okay.
Yeah. Well, as we begin to wrap things up, I mean, there's so many amazing points. Some of it was super dense. Some of it was hyper focused. And like, I feel like there's so much richness to this conversation. Thank you.
No, thank you.
I'm curious, what is lighting you up, at this moment in time? Like, what's really getting you excited?
I'm excited to see where this AI world's going to take us, to be honest. I'm trying to integrate it as much as I can with my workflow, but AI is on a compound curve at the minute. It's going to be unrecognizable in 5 years. I agree. I'm really, really excited to see where this world's going to go. Yeah, it's going to be fun.
Well, I'm glad you're excited versus scared. This is a good transition of energy compared to most, perhaps.
Well, the way I see it is we're actually a positive way to sort of wrap this chat up and talk about the AI thing is that people spend thousands of hours a month on this device. It's your phone. Yeah, your phone. And we are experts at creating the material that is consumed on these devices. AI is just a tool. It's just like the internet. I had a client the other day say, Tim, we want to create a film using AI. And I was like, why AI? They're like, we just want to make, lots and make it efficient. Oh, okay. So you care about volume of content. Great. Well, AI is a tool. So we may use it, may not. We have to learn to just understand the perspective of what it is. So yeah, I'm excited to just see where the world will go with it. I think if we learn to adopt it, you still need experts that are filmmakers that need to know how to use it and it's going to be years, I think, before it starts taking over everything. You're never going to replace content creators for the here and the now. Human stories that still need to be covered. There'll still be documentaries need to be made. There'll still be commercials that'll be shot in real life. Yes, you'll outsource a lot of the product stuff. Yes, you might, fake a lot. It may not need to go out and use Shutterstock anymore and all these other things, but it's okay. Libraries sort of suffered when the internet existed, but they're still around. I think it's all good. I think we just all need to chill a little bit. And remember, there are no experts on it because it's only been around 5 minutes. So just learn to not be scared by it and just try to be as valuable as you can. All right. And if you're valuable and you have humans that connect with you, humans are not going to connect to a random AI bot. They're going to connect with someone that knows how to keep it human. People still buy vinyl. People still, buy the original paintings when you can buy prints. We're not going anywhere. It's just becoming a little bit more competitive. That's all. It's just raising the bar a bit more. So we just have to learn to be better. That's it.
Agree with all that.
Yeah.
Well, Tim, thank you so much for coming on the show today. So many amazing, just advice there. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your energy.
Thank you.
Appreciate you.
I appreciate you. Thank you so much.